Let's be honest, not every Nintendo Switch game is meant to be relaxing. Some of them are brutal. Today we're counting down 20 of the hardest games on Nintendo Switch, the kind that test your patience, your reflexes, and sometimes your sanity. Only true gamers survive these. Okay, quick question. Have you ever played a game that made you feel smart and then immediately humbled you 5 seconds later? Yeah, this one does that for fun. Baba Is You looks adorable at first glance, but don't let that fool you. This is one of the most devious puzzle games ever released on the Switch. Instead of just solving puzzles, you're literally rewriting the rules of the game by pushing words around the screen. Baba is you. Flag is win. Change the sentence and the entire level logic changes with it. Early on, it feels clever and satisfying. Later, it feels like your brain is melting. Some puzzles require you to think several steps ahead, break rules you assumed were permanent, and completely rethink how games even work. There's no timer, no enemies chasing you, just you and your own logic slowly betraying you. I've stared at single screens for way longer than I'd like to admit. Some games challenge your skill. This one challenges your ego, because the moment you think you've got it figured out, Dark Souls knocks you flat. Dark Souls Remastered on Switch is the full, uncompromising experience. Slow, deliberate combat where every swing matters, every dodge has weight, and every mistake is punished hard. Enemies don't wait their turn, bosses hit like trucks, and the game absolutely refuses to explain itself clearly. What makes Dark Souls so brutal isn't just the difficulty, it's the consequences. You lose your souls when you die, and one bad run back can wipe out hours of progress. The level design is genius but unforgiving, full of ambushes, traps, and shortcuts you only appreciate after suffering through them. But when things finally click, when you beat a boss that's destroyed you 10 times in a row, it feels incredible, painful, earned, and slightly traumatic. This is the kind of game where your fingers are sweating, your brain is screaming, and somehow you still hit one more run. Enter the Gungeon is a top-down bullet hell roguelike that turns chaos into an art form. Every run throws you into randomized rooms filled with enemies, traps, and an absurd number of bullets flying at your face. Dodge rolling isn't optional, it's survival, and even then, the margin for error is tiny. What really makes Gungeon so hard is how fast everything escalates. Early mistakes haunt you later. Missed health, bad weapon drops, or one sloppy dodge can snowball into a doomed run. Boss fights demand pattern memorization, quick reactions, and total focus. And when you finally die, which you will, the game just shrugs and says, cool, start over. It's frustrating, addictive, and somehow impossible to put down. People aren't just excited about this game, they're deeply attached to it. And if you remember how unforgiving the original was, that excitement naturally comes with a little fear. Silksong puts you in control of Hornet, and the shift is immediate. She's faster, more agile, and far more aggressive than the Knight, but the world is designed to keep up with her. Combat feels sharper and more demanding, pushing you to stay confident and precise instead of defensive. Panic gets punished fast. Boss fights lean into endurance and mastery, blending rapid movement, tight attack windows, and layered patterns that leave almost no margin for error. Platforming is just as intense, often chaining precision jumps with combat moments that test your focus. Healing feels risky, mistakes pile up quickly, and recovery is never guaranteed. Silksong is gorgeous, fluid, and completely relentless, rewarding skill, patience, and persistence every step of the way. If you blink in this game, you're dead. If you think for half a second too long, you're also dead. Welcome to Ikaruga. Ikaruga is a legendary shoot-'em-up that looks clean and elegant, but plays like a precision test from another dimension. The entire game revolves around switching between black and white polarities. Match the enemy's color and you absorb bullets. Get it wrong and you explode instantly. There's no health bar, no forgiveness. Every level is carefully designed to overwhelm you, forcing you to memorize patterns, swap colors on instinct, and move perfectly through bullet-filled corridors. Boss fights feel more like puzzles than battles, demanding flawless execution under pressure. What makes Ikaruga so brutal is that it's fair. Every death is your fault. That doesn't make it easier, it makes it terrifying. Mastery feels incredible, but getting there? Pure pain. This one looks sweet, sounds gentle, and then absolutely destroys you with pixel-perfect jumps that do not care about your feelings. Celeste is a precision platformer that slowly ramps from challenging to downright brutal. Every jump, dash, and wall climb has to be timed perfectly. The controls feel amazing, which is dangerous because the game expects you to use them flawlessly. Screens become dense obstacle courses that require muscle memory, fast reactions, and calm under pressure. What makes Celeste especially hard is how long its toughest sections last. You're not just nailing one tricky jump, you're surviving entire gauntlets without messing up. And when you do mess up, you're instantly back at the start, staring at the same screen again. Somehow, it never feels unfair, just demanding. Add in optional challenges that push the difficulty even further, and you've got a game that's emotionally uplifting, while also absolutely exhausting. You know that moment when a JRPG random encounter wipes your entire team? Yeah, this game builds its identity around that feeling. Shin Megami Tensei 5 is one of the most unforgiving RPGs you can play on the Switch. Battles are turn-based, but don't let that fool you. One wrong move can end everything instantly. The press turn system rewards exploiting weaknesses, but if enemies do the same to you, the punishment is brutal and immediate. Even normal encounters can feel like boss fights, especially early on when resources are limited. Enemies hit hard, status effects are deadly, and preparation actually matters. You're constantly fusing demons, tweaking builds, and trying to stay one step ahead. The game doesn't scale gently. It expects you to learn, adapt, or fail repeatedly. It's strategic, tense, and sometimes straight up cruel. When you win, it feels earned. When you lose, it feels personal.
Its destruction is at hand.
Mario has saved princesses, kingdoms, and galaxies, but nothing prepared him for the absolute cruelty of other players. Super Mario Maker 2 turns Mario into one of the hardest platformers on the Switch, not because of Nintendo, but because of the community. Players create levels ranging from clever challenges to outright sadistic obstacle courses. Pixel-perfect jumps, invisible blocks, surprise traps, and frame-tight timing are everywhere. Endless challenge mode is where things really get brutal. You're thrown into a random sequence of player-made levels, and you never know if the next one will be fair or pure evil. Some creators design levels specifically to troll, bait, and punish every instinct you've learned from traditional Mario games. What makes it so hard is unpredictability. You can't memorize patterns or rely on logic. You just react and hope. It's chaotic, frustrating, and occasionally genius. Mario's greatest enemy isn't Bowser anymore. It's the internet. This feels like a lost NES game, and I mean that in the most painful way possible. Cyber Shadow is a modern game built with old-school cruelty in mind. It plays like a love letter to Quella Ninja Gaiden, complete with fast combat, tight platforming, and absolutely unforgiving level design. Enemies swarm you, projectiles fly from off-screen, and checkpoints are placed just far enough apart to make every death sting. Combat is precise and satisfying, but the game expects mastery. You're juggling jumps, slashes, dodges, and special abilities while staying constantly alert. Boss fights are intense and relentless, often demanding perfect execution for extended stretches. There's no room to mash buttons or panic. Cyber Shadow rewards patience and skill, but it never softens the blows. It's challenging in the purest sense, fair, brutal, and unapologetically old school. Most games punish your mistakes. This one punishes your confidence, your optimism, and eventually, your mental health. Darkest Dungeon is a turn-based RPG where losing control is part of the design. Your characters don't just take damage, they take stress. And when that stress builds up, they panic, lash out, refuse commands, or completely break down mid-fight. Sometimes they even sabotage the rest of the team. Combat is slow, methodical, and brutal. Positioning matters. Light levels matter. Supplies matter. One bad decision can spiral into permanent loss because death in Darkest Dungeon is final. There are no reloads, no undo buttons, no mercy. The game constantly forces you to decide whether to push forward or retreat, knowing either choice has consequences. It's oppressive, punishing, and emotionally exhausting, but that's exactly why it sticks with you. Winning feels rare. Surviving feels like an achievement. This game looks like a joyful platformer, right up until it demands absolute perfection from every single jump. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is one of the tightest platformers Nintendo has ever published, and it pulls no punches. Levels are fast, layered, and packed with hazards that punish even tiny mistakes. Miss a jump, mistime a roll, or hesitate for a split second, and you're sent flying into a pit. What makes it especially brutal is how dense the levels are. You're constantly reacting to enemies, moving platforms, collapsing floors, and tricky timing sequences, often all at once. Bonus stages crank the difficulty even higher, asking for flawless execution under pressure. The controls feel amazing, which almost makes it worse, because you know every death is on you. It's colorful, creative, and incredibly polished, but beneath that cheerful surface is a platformer that demands focus, precision, and patience at all times.
Wins, but the Kongs are on your side. Team up with a friend and take back paradise.
This is one of those games where combat feels amazing, until you realize the margin for error is basically zero. Nine Souls blends fast-paced action with parry-focused combat that demands near-perfect timing. Every enemy encounter feels dangerous, but boss fights are where the game truly shows its teeth. Attacks come fast, patterns evolve mid-fight, and hesitation is punished immediately. You're expected to read movements, react instantly, and stay aggressive without getting sloppy. Unlike games that let you brute force encounters, Nine Souls insists on mastery. You can't rely on health upgrades alone, you need skill. Parrying becomes essential, and missing even a single window can cost you the fight. Platforming sections keep the pressure high, often forcing precision movement between combat encounters. It's intense, stylish, and deeply satisfying when everything clicks. But until it does, Nine Souls is relentless, a game that rewards discipline and punishes panic without hesitation. Here's the thing about Spelunky. The game doesn't kill you once. It kills you slowly, creatively, and usually by accident. Spelunky is a roguelike platformer where every run feels unpredictable and deeply hostile. Levels are procedurally generated, meaning you never fully know what's coming next. And that uncertainty is what makes it brutal. Traps are everywhere. Arrow launchers, spikes, falling rocks, enemies that wake up at the worst possible time. One careless move can end an otherwise perfect run instantly. What really hurts is how fair it is. The game gives you clear rules, then watches to see if you forget them under pressure. Greed is punished. Rushing is punished. Even trying to help yourself can backfire spectacularly. Spelunky isn't about reflexes alone. It's about patience, awareness, and accepting that disaster is always one step away. Every death feels avoidable, which somehow makes it worse. If you've ever wondered what pure, old-school suffering feels like, this game brought it back, and it did not tone it down. Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection is a revival of one of gaming's most infamous franchises, and it proudly embraces its cruel legacy. Enemies spawn relentlessly, projectiles fly in unpredictable patterns, and knockback alone is enough to send you into instant death. Armor breaks, weapons feel awkward, and checkpoints are placed just far enough apart to maximize frustration. What truly defines the difficulty is repetition. The game expects you to die, learn, and replay sections again and again. And just when you think you're done, it demands multiple playthroughs to see everything. Boss fights are chaotic endurance tests, and patience is mandatory. This isn't difficulty designed to feel modern or forgiving. It's unapologetically old school. Beating it feels less like winning and more like surviving an ordeal. This game makes you feel unstoppable, right before it reminds you that everything can end in seconds. Dead Cells is a fast, fluid action platformer where momentum is everything. Combat feels incredible. Smooth dodges, satisfying strikes, and a constant sense of flow. But that speed is a double-edged sword. One missed dodge or mistimed attack can instantly spiral into disaster, ending a run you've spent hours building. The game's roguelike structure means death sends you back to the start, forcing you to re-earn progress while enemies grow more aggressive over time. Boss cells ramp the difficulty to absurd levels, turning familiar areas into lethal obstacle courses. What makes Dead Cells so punishing is how confident it makes you feel before pulling the rug out. You're encouraged to play fast, take risks, and stay aggressive, and the moment you slip, the game reminds you who's in control. There's a reason people still talk about this game with equal parts love and trauma. Hollow Knight is a beautiful, atmospheric Metroidvania that slowly reveals just how cruel it can be. Combat is tight and deliberate, with a strong focus on learning enemy patterns and reacting precisely. Early on, it feels manageable, but as you push deeper into Hollow Nest, the difficulty ramps up fast. Boss fights become longer, faster, and far less forgiving, demanding near-perfect execution. What really makes Hollow Knight painful is how much it asks of you mentally. You lose your currency when you die and have to fight your way back to reclaim it. Exploration becomes tense because every new area could hide enemies far stronger than you expect. Optional challenges like the Pantheon push things to extreme levels, testing endurance and mastery. It's gorgeous, haunting, and brutally honest. A game that rewards persistence but never hands out victories. This might be the nicest looking game on this list, and also one of the most unforgiving. Cuphead's hand-drawn 1930s cartoon art style makes it look playful and charming, but don't be fooled. This is a relentless boss rush game where precision and memorization are everything. Every fight throws patterns at you non-stop, filling the screen with projectiles, hazards, and surprises that demand constant movement and perfect timing. There's almost no downtime. You're always jumping, dodging, parrying, or shooting, and even one small mistake can cost you the entire fight. Bosses evolve mid-battle, forcing you to adapt instantly or die. What makes Cuphead so brutal is how consistent it is. The game never slows down, never goes easy, and never gives you room to breathe. It's fair, beautifully animated, and absolutely punishing. Winning feels incredible. Losing happens a lot more often. This is not a game about patience, it's a game about obsession. Super Meat Boy is pure precision platforming distilled into its most brutal form. Levels are short, but they demand flawless execution. Spikes, saw blades, collapsing platforms, everything is designed to kill you instantly. The controls are incredibly responsive, which means every death is entirely on you. What makes the game so addictive is its instant restart system. You die, you respawn, and you try again in less than a second. That speed keeps you locked in, chasing perfection. As the game progresses, levels become absurdly difficult, requiring frame-perfect jumps and split-second reactions. Watching dozens of your previous deaths replay at once is both hilarious and horrifying. Super Meat Boy doesn't waste your time. It just asks for everything you've got, and then asks again. This is the fastest Metroid has ever felt, and easily one of the most stressful. Metroid Dread takes the classic Metroid formula and cranks the intensity way up. Samus moves faster, shoots faster, and fights enemies that are far more aggressive than anything in previous entries. Boss battles demand constant movement, sharp reflexes, and near-perfect timing. There's no room to hesitate. Every second matters. What truly elevates the difficulty are the EMMI encounters. These sections turn the game into a high-pressure stealth nightmare, where getting caught almost always means instant death. You're forced to learn enemy behavior, routes, and escape strategies under extreme tension. Even outside those moments, regular enemies hit harder and punish mistakes quickly. Metroid Dread doesn't ease you in. It expects you to adapt immediately. It's thrilling, intense, and relentlessly demanding, making it one of the most challenging and nerve-wracking experiences on the Nintendo Switch. Some games test your reflexes. This one tests whether you remembered to bring a notebook. La-Mulana 2 is a puzzle-heavy Metroidvania that feels intentionally hostile to the player. The game is packed with cryptic riddles, hidden clues, and traps that punish curiosity just as often as they reward it. Nothing is explained clearly. Hints are vague, and missing a single detail can block progress for hours. Combat is dangerous, platforming is unforgiving, and enemies can overwhelm you quickly if you're not prepared. But the real difficulty comes from the puzzles. You're expected to read in-game tablets carefully, remember symbols, connect obscure ideas, and sometimes interpret clues in ways that feel borderline unfair. Trial and error is part of the experience, and so is frustration. La-Mulana 2 doesn't care if you're confused, it dares you to push through anyway. Beating it feels less like finishing a game and more like surviving an intellectual endurance test. And that's our countdown. 20 Nintendo Switch games designed to break even the toughest players. Now I'm curious, which one crushed you the hardest? Drop it in the comments and hit like and subscribe if you're always chasing your next gaming challenge.